Buenos Aires, Argentina, is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It's often called the Paris of South America. But for hundreds of years, Buenos Aires has had a dirty little secret. This river is the Riachuelo, and it forms the boundary between the city of Buenos Aires on this side and the province of Buenos Aires over there. The Matanza Riachuelo basin is 80 kilometers long, and it's home to nearly 5 million people. For more than 200 years, it has been horribly polluted, carrying the runoff from tanneries, oil refineries, chemical industries, shanty towns, and farmlands. As the new millennium began, its surface was matted with debris, and the river was littered with 53 abandoned ships, not to mention old cars, bathtubs, dead horses, and other stuff you don't want to know about. Then, in 2004, a little band of residents from an impoverished riverside neighborhood brought a lawsuit against the city, the province, the national government, 14 upstream municipalities, and 44 private companies, alleging that these organizations had damaged their health and infringed their right to a healthy environment. And the Supreme Court of Argentina agreed to hear what's become known as the Mendoza case. The lead attorney in the Mendoza case was Daniel Salaberry, who was offended by the gap between what the country's environmental laws said and what actually happened. Mendoza was a huge case, with innovations like public hearings and participation by civil society groups, and it worked. On July 8, 2008, after 4 years of hearings and investigations, the Supreme Court handed down a landmark decision not just for Argentina, but for the world. In a judgment that one observer called sweeping and poetic, the court ruled that government and industry had indeed infringed the residents' right to a healthy environment and were obliged to repair the damage. A new multi-jurisdictional organization called ACUMAR was created to deal with the problem. ACUMAR's task was to remove the industrial pollution, clean up the landfills, provide potable water to the residents, install proper sewage systems and storm drainage, create an emergency health plan, move riverbank residents into proper social housing, and keep the public informed about its progress. The work would be supervised by a citizens group and by a judge to whom ACUMAR would make regular reports, with penalties to be imposed for delay. And that's what happened. ACUMAR is now spending more than $1 billion a year on the cleanup. Just one revealing fact: the Riachuelo is now monitored by 250 environmental inspectors. That's more inspectors than Environment Canada has for our entire country. 6 years after the Supreme Court's landmark decision, the Riachuelo is far from clean, but it's a long way from what it was. Landfills have been cleaned up, most of the junk is out of the river, 200 families have been moved into new social housing, and where their shanties once stood, a linear riverbank park planted with native trees is giving the river back to the city and its citizens. There's a lot left to do, and some tough questions remain unanswered. For example, the disposal of the toxic sediments at the river bottom. This is still a dirty urban river, but it gets a little cleaner every day. And as an example of what can be done, it has shifted the thinking of communities across this country and around the world. What the people of the Riachuelo have that Canadians and Americans don't have is a legal right to a healthy environment. Like more than 110 nations around the world, Argentina recognizes that its people are entitled to clean water, fresh air, healthy food, and a say in decisions that affect those things. Some countries are going much further, embedding the rights of Mother Nature herself in their national legal systems. This is Alberto Acosta, who led the national consultation that included the rights of Mother Nature in the Constitution of Ecuador, and inspired a whole generation of young people like Natalia Green of the Pachamama Foundation. This is Pablo Solon of Bolivia, which has enacted a similar law. Pablo himself convened an international convention on the rights of Mother Earth, and Cormac Cullinan of South Africa, the author of a wonderful book called Wild Law, attended that convention and co-authored the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth. Green rights don't prevent economic development, but they do ensure that development takes place in a way that's proven to be responsible and sustainable. That's the goal of Michelle Maloney in Queensland, Australia, who is using the legal system to combat the massive expansions of coal shipping that are ravaging the Great Barrier Reef. This is MC Mehta, who forced the city of New Delhi to stop using diesel in their buses, arresting the deterioration of the Taj Mahal and saving 4,000 lives every year. Green rights provide a remedy that can be invoked in almost any environmental crisis. Meet Pablo Fajardo, a young Aboriginal lawyer from Ecuador who sued mighty Chevron to make restitution for decades of ruinous oil pollution in the Amazon and won a $9.5 billion judgment. This is his American colleague, Stephen Donziger. When Chevron fled Ecuador, Fajardo and Donziger filed a claim in Canada, where Chevron still has major assets. That case is before the courts in Ontario. How ironic is that? Ecuadorians suing for the enforcement of their environmental rights in a country that doesn't even recognize the environmental rights of its own citizens. But that's about to change. David Boyd is the Canadian legal scholar who literally wrote the book on the spread of green rights, and John Burrows is the Anishinaabe scholar who argues that the Canadian Constitution includes Aboriginal law, which is rooted in respect for Mother Nature. Ada Lockridge and Ron Plain of the Aamjiwnaang First Nation in Sarnia have filed a trailblazing lawsuit alleging that the right to life, which is guaranteed in Canada's Charter of Rights, logically includes green rights, and calling on the Ontario government to enforce them. And Dr. David Suzuki, the Dean of Canadian Environmentalists, is embarking on a national Blue Dot tour to engage Canadians in a discussion of what we value and how our laws should reflect those values. Incidentally, the U.S. legal system also ignores environmental rights. So activists like Thomas Lindsay and Mary Margill of the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund are putting green rights on the public agenda by helping municipalities to include citizens' rights in municipal legal systems. That's happened notably in Pittsburgh and Santa Monica, and that might work here too. One final reminder of what green rights can achieve. Antonio Oposa Jr. in the Philippines, whose string of remarkable legal victories began with his petition to the Supreme Court on behalf of future generations to ban logging in the few remaining old-growth forests in the Philippines. That case established the principle of intergenerational equity, the duty of the present generation to preserve a healthy environment for future generations. That's the Oposa Doctrine, which is now recognized around the world.
The environment is not about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees. It is about life and the sources of life, of land, air, and water. Easy to remember, LAW. Those are the three elements of life without which, or absent which, or the damage to which will threaten life itself. If you don't have air for 3 minutes, we die. If we don't have water for 3 days, we die. If we don't have food for 30 days, we die. When we as a people understand that, as a species understand that whatever we do to the land, to the air, and the waters will threaten life itself, perhaps things will be easier, because then people will, human beings, will understand and will take every effort to conserve, to protect, and to restore these elements of life.
Land, air, water, the law of life itself. And human laws must accord with that. That's what the environmental rights movement is all about. What you've just watched is an incredibly compressed version of the glorious story that my colleagues and I will tell in our full-length documentary film, Green Rights. What we're trying to do now is raise the money to complete the full-length film and then give it away, free, over the internet, in theaters, at universities, through non-governmental organizations of all stripes. Our charitable partners are the Sierra Club Canada Foundation and the Sierra Club in the United States, and you can make a tax-deductible contribution to our Green Rights Project through either of these two organizations. If you'd like to help us complete the film, please go to our website, www.greenrights.com, and hit the Donate button. Thanks for considering a donation, and thanks for watching the show. For the Green Rights Project, I'm Silver Donald Cameron.